8-year-old walks into courtroom and says 5 words that change everything. Hey, beautiful souls, your support absolutely lights up my world. Hit subscribe to join our growing family and unlock more heartwarming stories together. Here's my promise: I personally read and reply to every comment because you matter to me. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I'm genuinely excited to connect with you. Now, let's dive into today's extraordinary tale. The gavel hung suspended in the judge's hand like a sword of Damocles, and I knew that when it fell, it would either shatter my world or restore it. The fluorescent lights above cast harsh shadows across the mahogany paneled courtroom, their electrical hum mixing with the whispered conversations of strangers who held no stake in my breaking heart. My chest constricted with each breath, ribs pressing inward as if my body itself were collapsing under the weight of impending loss. 8-year-old Lily, my daughter. The thought of her name sent tremors through my hands. For months, this battle had consumed everything. My savings drained into legal fees, my nights stolen by sleepless anxiety, my spirit worn thin as tissue paper. Each morning, I watched Daniel stride through those heavy oak doors with the confidence of a man who had never doubted his own victory. His Italian leather shoes clicked against the marble floor in perfect rhythm, his charcoal suit pressed to knife-edge precision. That smile, oh, that devastating smile that had once fooled me into marriage, now fooled judges, lawyers, and court officials with its practiced warmth. But I knew what lived beneath that polished surface. I had seen it in the tremor that would creep into his voice when no witnesses lingered nearby, felt it in the way his fingers would dig into my arm during those final months before our divorce. The walls of our former home held memories of his rage, doors that bore the imprints of his fists, rooms where his shouts had echoed until they seemed to seep into the very foundations. How do you capture fear in a legal brief? How do you translate a child's nightmares into admissible evidence? I had tried, God knows I had tried, to make them understand. The lawyers shuffled through my testimonies with the detached efficiency of accountants reviewing spreadsheets, their eyes glazed with the weariness of those who had heard too many desperate mothers tell similar stories. In my purse, pressed between old receipts and grocery lists, lay a piece of construction paper that had become my talisman. Lily's drawing, stick figures representing our family, bright crayon colors depicting what should have been happiness. But in the corner, rendered in black crayon, with the heavy-handed strokes of a frightened child, lurked a shadow figure. No face, no features, just darkness given form. The opposing counsel rose like a predator sensing wounded prey. His voice carried the smooth authority of private school education and decades of courtroom victories. Each syllable was calculated, each pause strategically placed for maximum impact. Your Honor, we've heard endless claims from the mother, but nothing backed by fact. She is unstable, emotional, and unfit to provide the structured environment this child needs. My client offers stability, financial security, and love. We respectfully ask the court to grant him full custody. The words landed like physical blows. My own lawyer shifted beside me, his briefcase suddenly fascinating as he whispered apologies for arguments that had fallen on deaf ears. Across the aisle, Daniel's smirk unfurled like a flag of conquest. That expression, smug satisfaction, barely contained beneath a mask of respectful attention, told me everything I needed to know about how this would end. The judge cleared his throat, his fingers drumming once against his desk. The sound echoed in the sudden silence like gunshots. If there are no further statements, time crystallized. The air itself seemed to thicken, pressing against my lungs until breathing became a conscious effort. My knuckles had gone bloodless where they gripped the edge of the defendant's table. Somewhere in the distance, a clock ticked away the final seconds of my life as Lily's mother. And then, footsteps, small ones. The entire courtroom pivoted as one organism, heads turning toward the gallery, where families sat watching their lives dissected by strangers. There stood Lily, her yellow sundress bright as summer sunshine against the courtroom's austere palette. Her hair was braided with the precision that only a mother's loving hands could achieve, small wisps escaping to frame her face. Against her chest, she clutched Mr. Buttons, the stuffed rabbit that had been her companion through every storm. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper, yet it cut through the tension like crystal breaking. "Excuse me, Your Honor. Can I say something?" The gallery erupted in murmurs. Even Daniel's mask slipped for a moment, confusion flickering across his features like a candle in wind. The judge removed his glasses, cleaning them with deliberate slowness as he studied my daughter. "Lily, this is unusual, but if you have something you'd like to share, the court will hear you." She nodded, those braids swaying with childish determination, and walked forward. Each step echoed in the vast space, her small figure dwarfed by the imposing architecture of justice. My maternal instincts screamed. I wanted to sweep her up, to carry her away from this place where adult failures had created such devastating consequences. But she stood there, shoulders squared with a courage that humbled me, Mr. Buttons trembling in her grip. "Everyone keeps talking about Mommy and Daddy. They keep saying who's better, who's worse, but nobody asked me." The judge leaned forward, his demeanor shifting from judicial detachment to something more human. "Go on, Lily." She drew a shaky breath, her eyes scanning the assembled adults before settling on the floor. When she spoke again, her words fell like stones into still water, sending ripples through every soul present. "I love my daddy, but he scares me." The gasp that followed was audible, a collective intake of breath from dozens of throats. Daniel's face underwent a transformation, color draining until his tan looked sickly, artificial. His jaw clenched with such force I could see the muscles jumping beneath his skin. His lawyer half rose from his chair, mouth opening to voice some objection, but the judge's raised hands sliced through the air with unmistakable authority. All eyes returned to Lily, this small girl who had somehow found the strength to speak truth in a room full of lies. "When people visit, Daddy smiles. He buys me toys. He says he loves me. But when the doors close, it's different." Her voice cracked like ice under pressure, but she pressed on, clutching Mr. Buttons tighter. "He yells. He throws things. He locks me in my room when I cry." Each word was a revelation, stripping away months of carefully constructed legal arguments to expose the raw truth beneath. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I remained frozen, afraid that any movement might shatter this moment. He told me if I told anyone, he'd take me away from Mommy forever. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the court reporter's fingers had stilled on her keys. Lily's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but her voice grew stronger, fiercer, as if speaking the truth had unlocked some reservoir of inner strength. "Mommy never hurt me. She sings to me when I have nightmares. She makes pancakes with smiley faces. She tells me I'm safe, and I feel safe with her." Then she turned, and her gaze found mine across that chasm of mahogany and marble. Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the room. "I want to stay with Mommy, please." The silence stretched until it became a living thing, heavy and suffocating. Daniel shifted in his chair, the leather creaking like old bones. His lawyer sat statue still, his expensive briefcase forgotten at his feet. Behind Daniel, his family, who had sat with such smug confidence, now studied their hands as if they contained the secrets of the universe. The judge set down his glasses, his movements deliberate as a ritual. For long moments, he simply stared, first at Lily, then at me, then back to my daughter who stood clutching her rabbit like a lifeline in a storm. When he finally spoke, his voice had shed its judicial formality, becoming something deeper, more human. "Thank you, Lily. That was very brave." The opposing counsel made one final attempt, his voice cracking with forced composure. "Your Honor, with all due respect, children are impressionable. They exaggerate. Enough." The gavel struck once, sharp as a rifle shot. The judge's eyes had gone cold as winter stone as they fixed on Daniel. "The testimony of this child cannot be ignored." The air itself seemed to shift, pressure releasing like a storm passing. Relief flooded through me in waves, but I held my breath, waiting for the words that would either save us or damn us. The judge drew himself up, his voice carrying the weight of absolute finality. "This court rules in favor of the mother. Custody is hereby granted." The sound that escaped my throat was half sob, half scream of triumph. I buried my face in my hands as my body shook with relief, exhaustion, and overwhelming love. Behind me, I heard Daniel's chair scrape against the floor as he shot to his feet, his face twisted with rage, but the bailiff was already moving. blocking his path with professional calm. And then Lily was running to me, her small body colliding with mine as I caught her in my arms. I held her so tightly I thought I might never let go, her warmth melting away months of frozen fear. Her voice whispered against my ear, small and worried. "Did I do okay, Mommy?" Tears streamed down my face as I kissed her hair, breathing in the sweet scent of her childhood shampoo. "You did more than okay, baby. You saved us." We walked out of that courtroom hand in hand, stepping from the artificial light of legal proceedings into the honest warmth of afternoon sunshine. The weight that had pressed against my chest for months finally lifted, leaving me feeling lighter than air. As we stood on the courthouse steps, Lily looking up at me with eyes that held wisdom far beyond her years, I realized something I would never forget. Sometimes the smallest voice in the room carries the biggest truth.